I did like 200 grand of that in like 2 months. Especially the very explosive ones where you're actually doing like 100K to 120K a month of a singular channel. These are usually channels that operate in more grayish areas of YouTube. Not only does your title, thumbnail, text matter, what's in your video and what's being said inside of your video matters. A lot of the channels I run are something that comes up very fast and goes down very fast. So that's why when you see those insane analytics, it comes with a drawback.
Before we start this podcast, I have one little favor to ask you. Can you please hit the subscribe button down below so we can help more people every single week? Thank you. Let's kick off.
Okay, let's start.
Let's do this. All right, where I want to start is really getting into the detail, man. So like, how much have you made from YouTube, you think, in total?
All right, basically in YouTube total, I think, I don't have, like, because there's a lot of side income streams as well. Like obviously you have like sponsorships, but I think it would be close to 2.5 million in revenue. And that's been, before my 21st birthday, yeah.
Oh my God. And how many channels is that? Like, what's the breakdown?
So here's the thing you have to understand about the way I run channels is a lot of people have like channels for like you, for example, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
A lot of the channels I run are something that comes up very fast and goes down very fast. So that's why when you see those insane analytics, it comes with a drawback, just like anything. Like there's a balance in it. So these channels I run are very trend-based videos. So for example, you recently had like the situation with Diddy and all those celebrities going on. Like I did, and I can show you really quickly. I did like 200 grand of that in like 2 months. I'll show you. And
this is long form videos.
This is long form videos. It was 11, just on one channel, it was 11 million long form views a month with an $11 RPM. So that's like how much you get paid per 1,000 views.
And what do people get wrong about this? Because like, let's take a little bit of a step back. So 2 million, you've like 15 channels or 20 channels. Yeah. Where's the disconnect between you and everybody else on YouTube right now? So there's multiple avenues. Like people think like, okay, like when they say, oh, okay, I'm a YouTube expert. Like, no, I'm not a YouTube expert, because it's like saying, oh yeah, he's a doctor, but that doesn't mean he's a brain surgeon. You know, there's a difference between those. Like in YouTube, you have different avenues you can go into. And what I specialize in is I'm very good at identifying, okay, where's a market that has a need for content but is underserved and also has explosive enough growth where in a very short period of time I can make a lot of money and then basically go on to the next thing. So I ride waves instead of like building long-term brands. We can talk about that later, but I've also started building like more long-form, like actually branded channels where if you would watch it, you would think, this is like an actual person making the videos, but it's actually a team behind it. And then we're posting like 3-4 times a week, what a normal creator could only post like maybe once a month or once every 2 weeks. So yeah, basically what I'm really good at is identifying trends and hopping on them. Give me examples of something that's underserved, and then you go into pumping out the content first. Yeah, so
I'll give you an example. I can talk about it freely now because YouTube does this every time, and it's US politics. There was a massive niche. Like a couple of days ago, like
the Fern video.
No, it was related to that, but it's actually more simple than that. So it was basically commentary of what the news was reporting around US politics. So for example, if Jimmy Kimmel said something, you would make a video like Jimmy Kimmel just called out Trump or something like that. And these, like we were putting like 1.5 million real-time views per 48 hours. So that was like 2 to 6 grand a day. I can show you all the analytics in a second if you want, but it's like these very short-term niches, and they sometimes people tend to also operate in more gray areas of YouTube. So that's what you have to understand. These things come with a drawback. Like, you can run these channels, but especially the very explosive ones where you're actually doing like 100K to 120K a month of a singular channel. These are usually channels that operate in more grayish areas of YouTube. So things like compilations where you can run into like copyright issues, like those things pull a lot of views. But on the other hand, you have YouTube policy, and you have to be studying that quite a lot. So yeah, and then you also, of course, have the branded channel. So those are like two completely different ways of running your business. So when you ask how many channels have you run, it's probably like hundreds of them. But because what tends to happen is you start a channel, it blows up, and then you're riding away like a trend, and it's usually like 3-4 months, and then on the longer side you have 1 year, 2 years, and then I think the older channels that are a bit more consistent have been around for like 4 years, something like this. Yeah, you usually cycle through a bunch of different channels. So on average, I run around 18 to 20 channels at the same time.
And they're in different niches,
Yeah,
which means you need to learn something new or hire the right people to be script writers. Yeah. And this is all faceless as well for context for people. So as a result of that, how do you go 0 to 1? Like, how have you been able to do it? So let's take a step back a second. Like, when you're looking at this opportunity, 2018, or when you started when you were 13 years old, like, how did you piece this together, being like, I can come in here, blast the shit out of a niche, and then move on? Yeah, so I learned this actually, and it is a very famous channel from WatchMojo. And also another company called, and they don't own WatchMojo, but it's called they own the channel Screen Rant as well, and a couple others. It's called Valnet Inc. And I got introduced to them because I started the Twitter, and some rep from them reached out to me and asked if I wanted to edit videos for them. That's how I originally got in touch with these like Faceless videos, where they asked me to edit for them, and I was editing. I had a Minecraft channel like when I was 13, as all 13-year-olds do. And and they saw the videos and they were like, oh yeah, would you like to edit? Because that's how they used to do their hiring. They would reach out to creators, like small creators on YouTube, asking if they wanted to edit for them. Good idea.
Yeah, it's a very good idea. I still do it myself, so I reach out to smaller creators, see if they wanted to work with me. But anyway, they reached out to me. They were like, oh, do you want to edit for $200 a video? I'm like 30. I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to edit for $200 a video. Like that's like 6 weeks worth of pocket money or something like that. Like even more than that. So I started working with them, and then I realized I'm like, okay, I have Fiverr over here, which I used Fiverr to like make like Minecraft server banners, and I also saw people on Fiverr like offering editing services for like $25, and I was like, I could just literally outsource this to them. So I started outsourcing that editing work to all those Fiverr editors, and I basically started creating a freelance team behind me. So I would take on this Faceless video work, and then I would outsource it to my team. And then eventually someone came up to me one day, and I think it's like around 14, 15 years old, and they were like, why the fuck are you not starting your own channel? I'm like, yeah, damn, why am I not? So from there on out, I started building my own channels. And that's basically how I got into the industry. It was basically by first getting hired as a freelancer. And I think a lot of people start this way, where they either get involved by, a friend needing help on a channel, or nowadays it's a lot like social media and courses, but it used to be like indirectly, like, oh yeah, I need help on this channel, and they started their own channel. So that's how I originally got started. And
what was your experience like when you were younger in school? Like, what were you like as a child? Because you're printing this cash at 13, 14, and it's small, right?
Yeah,
but you're piecing it together.
Well, I would say, how do I put it in a friendly way? I'm quite strange. Like
really?
Yeah. Like I can be outgoing, but I can also be incredibly like obsessed and introverted. Yeah. Which means like my schedule would literally look like this. I would go to school, and whenever the teacher wasn't looking, I would be working on my laptop. And then when they were looking, I close my laptop, and they turn around again. I open my laptop and start working again on like videos. Then when I got home, I would start editing and contacting the clients, because school would block all social media networks. But I absolutely hated school, and I was basically absent most of the time. Like I was in school, but I was not. My head wasn't there. Like I was just somewhere else, and it got to a point where I struggled in school for the first 3 years. Like this is high school, so I struggled like quite a lot. And then all of a sudden, like my dad came to me and he was like, okay, you can work on your business, just crush it in school and they'll leave you alone. So I was like, fuck yeah, let's try that out. So I just started like studying for the test really hard last minute, and then I started crushing the test, and eventually I got like all A's, like top grades. And then eventually I could go ahead and go to my teacher. I'm like, listen, this is my track record. Let me sit in the back of the class and let me do my thing. Like I'm just working on my own company. And eventually they just gave up. They just let me either sit in the hallway and work on my business or sit in the back of the class and work on my business.
And how much were you making? What age were you?
And this was, when I finally achieved that, like that where I could just like do my own thing while the teacher was doing the explanation, I think it was like fourth. So in the Netherlands, where I'm originally from, that's like we call it fourth grade, basically. It works differently from American or the UK-based systems. But you're around like 16 or something at the time. And I was making like 10, 15 grand a month of ad revenue. And then, yeah. So I was doing like triple what the teachers were making. But I was very quiet about it.
Yeah.
Like my mom originally thought, because she had a parental bank account, and then the Google AdSense, you see the Google Ireland that comes in. She was so confused initially. She was like, are you sure what you're doing is legal? Like, is it legal? I'm like, yeah, it's legal.
That's how you know you're making so much money, though. Like, I remember hearing Hormozy talk about that. His dad rang him and was like, someone's paying you $42,000 a year. And he had like 1,000 people paying him $42,000 a year. And he said, is that illegal?
Yeah, I know.
It's they can't fathom, and it's nothing to do with your parents. It's the fact that they can't articulate that sort of money from like the internet, basically creating it from the internet.
Yeah.
So walk me through the process of how you scale up that operation. What was your team like? Are you doing all the script writing at this point? Because I think this is what people get wrong, right? They think faceless channels or content in general, I just make a video and then hopefully grow it and have a business on the back end. But 9 years for you, what's kind of been the structure?
I did everything myself the first, I think, 3 or 4 years. So I deeply understand. Like I'm a great editor as well. Like I'm good at editing, I'm good at writing. Like I can do everything myself, basically. And I think it starts with that. I also tell people when they ask like, how do I start out? Is just learn every aspect of it yourself. Because what people tend to do is like immediately go ahead and this is also a problem with, I think, like software startups or something like that, where you have a founder like, I have an idea, let me go hire a dev. But if you don't understand how to communicate with them, it's not going to go anywhere, right? Like you have to understand, you have to be able to solve problems for them when they come up, because usually you're going to be the problem solver as CEO. So the first couple of years were just like me doing the actual work. So writing scripts, doing the voiceovers sometimes, like even with my like heavy accent, and then also editing the videos. And then once you have that down, as this is with any company, once you get it down, you can then very easily start communicating with the freelancers you work with. Because if you can't do that, and I see this disconnect in a lot of companies, like not even YouTube itself, if you can't properly communicate with them, like, oh, this is wrong because this and this, then you're gonna be making so many mistakes. That's the issue. So once I had learned those base skills, and this was like subconsciously I was doing this. Like I wasn't actually thinking like, I first need to learn the base skills. This was just skills, this was like the natural progression of it. But looking back to it, that was very beneficial, because otherwise I could never scale the operation to where it is now. Because what I can do now is I can make templates for the team. I can properly communicate, like let's say there's something wrong in the edit, I can easily say, you can put over this effect, or you can do this and this and this. And that's really helpful.
What I love as well, man, is the fact that you're taking a business approach to YouTube, and that's been your angle, right? So people might look at you and they might think you're a creator, but you're not, though, right? Like you're
I don't like being in front of the camera. That's why you don't see me. Like that's why I mainly grow my brand on Twitter. I like speaking about it. But
why did you focus on YouTube versus other businesses? Because it sounds like to me that you could have done anything, right?
Right.
You could go and learn anything, but making YouTube a business seems very fucking difficult, because growing channels is actually harder than growing businesses. Businesses are almost linear, right? Hire, problem solve, solution, release. It sounds like you picked the hardest business and then you nailed it, but you could have done other businesses.
Well, you have to keep in mind, like, this was like, and I think it's, like, we discussed this before, but I think it's different nowadays, where when people start a business, they're very consciously thinking about, hey, I'm going to start a business. And what tends to happen, and I think I see this with a lot of like other like successful peers, is they rolled into it naturally. It kind of evolved from, okay, I'm doing YouTube as a funny hobby, and then it kind of escalates from there. That's how I got into it. But what happens nowadays is people consciously choose to start a business. And then what happens is that overthinking comes in, like, oh my God, am I making the right decisions? Instead of actually taking action. And that's I think the main driver that got me where I am today is I was just doing stuff all the time, like everything. Like when I saw something interesting, like a new niche, or I saw like, hey, I could optimize something here, I would just execute it in the shortest amount of time possible. Like, and I still do that to this day. Like whenever I see an opportunity, I'm like, okay, let me just look into that. Like even when it's just unrelated to what I'm currently doing, just letting yourself try stuff out, like gives you that source material to come up with great ideas for your business.
Natural curiosity.
Exactly.
However, what's the line between natural curiosity and shiny penny syndrome?
That's a very good question. Like I am probably a really bad patient of shiny object syndrome, like very bad patient. But I think the main solution to solving shiny object syndrome is making sure that your focus is on something new inside of your business every day, right? So if you find yourself kind of drifting away to totally different, unrelated projects, I always go like, okay, what can I make new or like redo in my current business that could improve it and kind of give me that, another spike of dopamine of something that's novel, right? So every time I catch myself doing it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to let myself drift away for a bit and just like check it out. And then after X amount of time, depending how much time I have that day, I'm just gonna pull myself back and refocus and try to do something novel within my own company, right? If it's making perhaps a new type of video format, or with my software company, I make a new feature, or I think of a new feature. I tend to have a lot of projects going on within my company, just so, because that's just what my brain needs. Is it needs that new, like novel stimulation all the time, and if you try to force yourself to focus while your brain isn't made to do that, you're just gonna burn yourself out super quickly. And so you need to structure your company to the way your brain works. Because if you fail, your entire company fails. So you have to, I structure my company and the culture around it as well in a way where I can function optimally.
It makes sense because it sounds like to me that you're very much 0 to 1 type of guy, like the creative, almost like wireframing type of individual, the design led, versus the scaling side can often be boring, which is why Piyush is the scaler, right? Like you need people who can drive the business forward, whereas for you, your natural curiosity is the tinkering in the beginning. We'll come back to the startup for sure, but I want to focus on the Faceless automation side. So is this a big opportunity for people in 2024, or has opportunity kind of fallen off for Faceless channels? Do you want to launch a podcast for your business, but you don't know where to start? Remove the stress, pressure, and all the overwhelm that comes with it by working with Podcast University. If you're an ambitious individual who wants to build your influence online, grow your own podcast, and also stand out from the crowd, Podcast University is for you. We help you with the strategy, equipment, the content, your guests, everything you need to create a top-tier podcast. If you want to learn more, check out Podcast University and start your podcast journey today.
I would say it's a lot harder. Like a lot of people love to say like, oh yeah, do you want to quit your 9 to 5, like join YouTube automation? Like that's also what my idea when I came into like building a personal brand. Like I was so sick and tired of like people like misrepresenting the business model, and it still happens every single day. Like it's so tiring, and that's what. And I think that's why there's also like a counterculture that really hates like faces videos. But that's because the problem with it is it's being made out, and the entire name YouTube automation is being made out as, oh yeah, you hire a team and it's automated. No, it's not like that. Like you're constantly checking the videos, you're constantly like revising. You're like some freelancer tells you that there's supposedly a power outage in their house. Yeah, like there's always something, like always a problem to solve. It's the same. I don't understand how people expect like when you hire something, it's gonna be naturally easy. Like that's not how business works, right? And like Yeah, especially when working with freelancers, like you'll get the craziest excuses. Like craziest stuff. Like they're really nice people, but you also like sometimes have bad apples.
I think the reason why, and myself and Piyush are laughing because we have a lot of young editors too.
Yeah.
And like when I was 20, or when I was 19, 20, if I didn't like something in a company, I'd just leave.
Yeah.
You just, next morning, you're like, I'm sick, I got a bug, I'm going to leave. Whereas I think we're probably used to like sticking it out and putting a pad and speaking to the manager and changing things. So we've often had like just things just fall down overnight. And we're like, why does that happen? And it's because these people are 19, like they just want to drink, party and have sex, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue. Bro, like I'll tell you a funny story. It's I used to have an African manager. I would pay him like $4 or $5 grand a month. And well, for where he's from in Africa, it's crazy money, right? So all of a sudden, a week goes by and I haven't seen a single message of this guy. I check his Instagram stories, and this guy is in the club popping bottles with 10 women next to him, based off all the money he's making, because he's making crazy income, right? Because like I'm paying him a Western salary because he was doing a lot of work. So now I've got a new manager, but like that's pretty funny. But yeah, anyway, back to the original subject. Basically, what you have to understand is that it's still a great opportunity. Like there's many people just also outside of my community that are making wild amount of money from YouTube. We'll call it YouTube Faceless. I don't like calling it YouTube automation. But really the thing is now is that with the amount of attention it's been getting, so that started in early 2023, the main advantage you used to have, which is called first movers advantage, is kind of fading. So as soon as you see a new opportunity jump up, right? So for example, let's take that US politics, right? You see like 3 or 4 channels in the US politics. They started 2-3 weeks ago, and they're pulling 5 million views a month, like after 2 or 3 weeks of starting the channel. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for these type of signals where we see channels have recently started popping off like and doing crazy numbers, right? Because that usually indicates a really heavy imbalance in the supply and demand. So like the supply is way lower than the demand is, right? The problem is there are now so many other people looking for the same signals, and there are more mature tools like the one I run that scan YouTube for these types of channels. So especially when on the lower quality side, it really becomes a race of who can scale the fastest. Like you need to be a master of basically having a good team. Because if I see an opportunity, I need to act really quickly. Because you can see how fast these channels come in the market. Like for example, when I have a channel and I build a channel in a niche, you can guarantee in a month from now, especially if that channel is putting 10 million views a month, there's going to be 100 others doing the exact same thing. And that's the issue now on that on the bottom feeding content, which is very profitable, by the way, for a short period of time.
And how much money views would you need to hit?
I'll kind of show you. I'll kind of give you an idea what the view graphs usually look like on like these really trendy channels. So, and you can show this to the camera as well.
Because like if I'm thinking about that Fern video, and if anyone doesn't know, like the Trump assassination video, they did it within 36 hours, I think. I think it was about the Sunday or the Monday morning.
Yeah, that was really good capitalization. So this is what a graph usually looks like on like channels. So you have an existing channel. If you want, you can record the screen. I'll send it to you later for the editing.
I can screenshot it actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And just for a bit of context on this, like how much. So you produced a video, and now if I'm going back to that Trump video, because it's the only one I really kind of watch, or a Polymatter, like Polymatter videos. Polymatter. The production is so high, the animations is so high that how can someone start something like that?
Yeah, so that's usually those are like actually like guys your age, like a lot of them run those branded channels. Yeah. And then the younger guys, so yeah, it's really funny to see the different tiers. So in YouTube, kind of like we'll call it YouTube automation culture, you have like different groups of people. The really young guys tend to do short form content. Yeah. So like they're pumping out, let's say like 100 videos every couple days, and they're pulling maybe like 10 grand a month, and they're doing like hundreds of millions of short form views a month. It's like the cool part about short form is that it's very easy to enter. You need a very low budget. And then you have the guys like me, like usually my age, like 21, 22, 23, where we're usually into like these like short viral channels where, you know, they usually have very high RPMs, like $10, $12, and they get like 10 million views, and you make like 120 grand 1 month, and the next month it's down to 50, 60. And then you have the older guys, and that's what you're talking about. Like you have Real Life Lore, Polymatter, like these types of channels, like Fern. Those are run by usually guys with ex-business backgrounds. They usually come from a VC background, or they come from another type of media background, and they start making these really high quality, either documentary channels. And those are like kind of the 3 different factions you have within this given industry, right? So, and that's the cool part about it. Like there's many different ways you can run a YouTube channel. So I think in terms of like, is it a good business model to get into in 2024? Yeah, but it takes a lot of time and skill. Like you have to understand it's gonna, like, as you have to view it as building a startup. Like no one can promise you to build a startup in 3 months and make it profitable. Like that's bullshit. Like, yeah, like maybe I could partner with one person, and then I would kind of push away like all the other focuses I would have to have and just focus on building that one channel, and I can do it in 3 months or 2 months. You know, I've done it multiple times before. Like I tested out doing consulting. I really didn't like it, but like we had like 5 people, and like they all were successful. And like one of the US politics channels we ran did like 120 grand in 2 months. And yeah, that basically did well, but it requires so much attention. Like I would never, that's why I don't like coaching businesses, or that's why also I don't have a coaching or anything like that. Like there's no way you can coach 100 people and run YouTube channels at the same time. Like I tried that with the ideas, like I'm going to take equity in every single one of these channels, and then hopefully I can train these people, and then we can scale more channels. Because what we talked about before is like the way I run so many channels is I try to eliminate contact points, right? So for each channel, there's only one person I talk to. Or for example, a group of channels, there's only one person I talk to. And no lower level employee, like a scriptwriter or video editor, can come to me with a problem. It's always either through a manager, or if I have a problem, I go to them, right? Because otherwise you go really crazy when you run like so many channels at the same time.
And you're releasing like 400 videos a month?
Yeah, like it's like 400 views a month. And it can increase it can balloon to way more depending on if there's a trend going on.
So what would be your production process to do QA, keep the standard really high, the script writing and animations very high?
So this again depends on what type of channel you run, right? So if you run a higher quality channel, you have someone that checks everything usually. So you usually partner up with someone who can really focus on that aspect of the business, because you can't run 20 high quality channels. It's impossible. But what you can do is run these like more news related channels where it's just purely the content is in the information you're sharing, and not so much really in the video editing or the storytelling. Like it's more like information based, right? So in that case, videos usually just get looked over really quickly by a manager and then published. Like you can't upload 10 videos a day if you're meticulously reviewing every script. Like people don't like. That's why sometimes. People who are like pixel perfect, like they try to make everything perfect, really struggle in this industry.
Yeah,
because
80-20, right? And at the end of the day, everything's 80-20. If there's a small hiccup 40 minutes into a 45-minute video, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, no one
40
cares.
minutes in, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that. Like I just say, look, okay, let's just publish it, and then if there's feedback, because the one thing I heavily believe in is like incredibly fast feedback loop. So I need to be able to just ship an idea and then get back feedback immediately. And that feedback for me comes in terms of views. So I push something, see how it does, and I can judge over 24 hours. And then I can get feedback for the next thing. I don't like improving on what I'm currently working on. If they make a really big mistake, sure, I'll go ahead and say, okay, can you please fix this video because X and X is wrong, right? But usually what I'll do is, okay, I see a mistake in the video, I say, okay, guys, in the next video, make sure this is better. And then make sure to, like when you're communicating with your team, to really focus on one problem at a time. That's really, really important.
Oh man, my brain is spiraling because the pixel perfect, I never heard it explained like that. Yeah. But the amount of guys that I know and clients that we've had that would not release things until like everything is aligned, to the point that it just killed the opportunity, right? At that point, whereas for someone like yourself who's at the top of the game is just saying ship it, like a startup.
Yeah, I'm just trying to push out as much as possible, basically.
And do you think because you don't have a face to the channel, that's easier for you because you're like, fuck it, we can just scale, keep going.
That's the advantage. You can push out imperfect stuff, and people don't understand that most really good ideas start as imperfect.
Of course.
And I think people, especially with a personal brand online nowadays, they're afraid of making mistakes because it's so easy for people to go and point a finger at you, right? But that kind of like being scared of making mistakes makes you a lot less competitive. Like I'll go out and test and try everything. Like the problem is you have to measure things in order to know if it actually works. Like a lot of people will sit there and study like the numbers and like try to get it perfect and like do like a one shot, one kill type of try. But I just try everything until I'm sure, okay, this works, let's run with this, right? And I think that's why there's a competitive advantage to be gained, that too many people are trying to be too perfect online.
Man, this is crazy. So I need to ask you about your mindset for this, because like you have a very startup founder mindset that you brought into content and media. So it's not like you're a YouTuber, it's media.
Yeah.
You know, where did you develop that from? Like the fail forward approach, all things like this. Like that's what people like Peter Thiel are doing, man. Yeah. You know, and you're like 21 doing this, starting at 13. I
think you just naturally. I think if you fall enough, you'll naturally learn this over time. I'm not. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. Like it might sound like I listen to a lot of like a founder podcasts and stuff like that. I know a lot of people do, but I think over time these are just like super obvious lessons. And especially if you listen, like I sometimes see the Instagram reels come by with these like startup advice or like big YouTubers giving advice. The thing is with giving advice is it doesn't really hit you until you've actually made a mistake that could have been prevented by that piece of advice. And then you internalize that piece of information only after you actually felt the consequences of it. And that's a really funny thing because you just get overloaded with so much information and advice. Like you could learn, that's really the difference between theory and practice, right? Like theory, you understand like, okay, this is a piece of advice, okay, nice piece of information. But in practice, you feel the pain when you make a mistake, when you don't follow that piece of advice.
100%.
And that's why it's so important to do stuff. Like anything, it doesn't matter what you're doing, just move forward. That's really, really important.
Man, that's crazy. How did you think of like Next Level? And for people, for context, that's your tool. That's basically searching and scraping all of YouTube. Yeah. What was that instinct for you to say, okay, there's a way that we can help and serve people?
So as any, I think, good software tool or any good like company starts, it's like, I had a problem. Yeah. And I thought more people had a problem. That's always how a company starts, right? And that problem was like, okay, I'm someone who hops between a lot of different niches, right? And what that means, what I'm doing is I'm coming up with some kind of hypothesis. So I think, okay, there could be, it's like a treasure hunt, basically. So I'm like, okay, there could be a large enough audience in, let's say, celebrity content. I don't know what I'm looking for yet. Like, it's always going down this type of rabbit hole. And I would, for example, generate a couple keywords concerning celebrity. So I would do like Justin Bieber, and I would look that up. And then you have if you go to YouTube, you have like next to the search field, you have the filter tab, and you press on filter, and you press on most viewed this month. That's basically what we all do when YouTube automation. And then you basically start looking for, if you have like a Chrome extension like VidIQ installed, you can see the subscriber count. We're looking for something called outliers. And outliers is video that have a high ratio between, and there's multiple definitions for this, but for me it's videos that have a high ratio between amount of views a video got versus the amount of channel subscribers. So usually you're looking for videos that have like 1,000 subscribers and 500,000 views. You know, those are really nice ratios to see because that means the success of that video wasn't because of the channel having an original audience. The success of that video was because that video just in and of itself was really interesting and really good.
Why isn't a video interesting in that regard? Because is it to do with the event? Is it to do with search, like we discussed before about SEO? Like what I'm trying to understand here is that, like, what are the signals in a video that would make it grow if the channel is just new?
Yeah, so I'll first, I think your audience has a lot of like more traditional business people in it as well.
For sure.
I'll announce it to you here right now. SEO on YouTube is basically dead in 2024. Like, whatever people say, don't believe it, because it's way, way more complicated than it actually is. And I'll go, and I've told you this before, but I'll go over it really quickly because it's such a big misconception and everyone loves to spread it because it's a good thing to sell. It's an easy sell. But in reality, YouTube search works in way more complicated ways than it actually is advertised. Like, oh yeah, you have to put the tags and the title. That's not how it works. So first of all, you have to understand that YouTube reads your transcript of the video, right? It knows what's in your video. So not only does your title and thumbnail tags matter, what's in your video and what's being said inside of your video matters for SEO. That's the first thing. And second of all, for every keyword, each channel is assigned a authority score. So authority score means basically how many videos have you uploaded on a given subject. How does the audience respond to those given videos? So are the comments mostly negative? Are they positive? Did the users then, after watching that video, go and watch more of your videos? Did they like or engage more on average? So they measure something called audience satisfaction. That's like the master metric nowadays on YouTube. It's called audience satisfaction.
Can you find that number?
No. This is an internal number. And that's the difficult part about YouTube, is that a lot of the metrics you'll see in your dashboard are very misleading metrics, very paradoxical metrics. I'll give you an example. So for example, a lot of people will go like, okay, this video has a high CTR, click-through rate, right? So how many people out of X amount of impressions clicked on this video? And that's given in a percentage, right? The thing that you have to understand is that a lot of people go, okay, this video has high CTR, thus it's a good thumbnail. But that's not how it works. Because if you serve a video to 5 people and 5 people all click on that video, you get 100% CTR. But if you then serve it to 1 million people and you get perhaps a 5% click-through rate, that's the difference there is that as your audience or your sample size of increases, usually the CTR just goes down. Yeah. So CTR is basically a hidden average. And thus you can't make up a lot of conclusions from it, right? And this is what people have to understand. The same thing goes for your audience retention. When you look at the retention, it's also, YouTube added audience segmentation to your retention graph. And this gets quite advanced, but you're able to see the different types of audience that watches your video and where they click off on the video. So for example, a video could be, let's say you have a channel around business, right? And the videos you usually make is around copywriting. So your core audience would be copywriters, correct? And then a broader audience would be like more general business people. So let's say you make a video about, how to get more clients as a copywriter. That video will get a very high CTR and a very high average view percentage initially, because the first thing YouTube will do is push that to your core audience, right? To that initial set of viewers. But afterwards, YouTube will try to push that to a broader audience, so business people, right? But they're not really interested in that type of subject. So the CTR and your average view percentage will go down. So meaning, it's very difficult to pull conclusions from those numbers. So what I'm trying to get at here, in the end, the only thing that matters is what is the end result that is good for you, right? What is the metric? What is the metric that you actually give a shit about? For me, that's views and revenue, right? For other people, it might be product sales or conversions. But inherently, people are misled by all the YouTube advice and then also even the YouTube dashboard because they don't understand how data actually functions. And this is like a very important piece of advice you need to understand. So if you're trying to grow a channel, the only thing you actually need to be looking at is just views. Did this video get views, yes or no? Did he get more or less views than my other videos? Okay, got less views. What did I do in those other videos that made it get more views? Right? It shouldn't be, oh yeah, the CTR is higher or lower. Like
What about average watch time?
Average watch time, it depends. It's also something like, yeah, sure, you can look at it. But the thing is like, in the end, views the end metric. That's how you measure success. Why would you look at all the noise basically instead of the actual end results you're looking at? But like average watch time, yeah, it's interesting to see in some cases, but you have to keep in mind like some videos have different lengths, some videos have different audiences, and it all obscures what the number actually means, right?
Would that push the video to a larger audience if it's higher?
You mean the average length of a video?
So let's say if the average watch time someone watches like 13 minutes of a 20-minute video, would YouTube identify that as a valuable video and then push it to a larger audience pool?
So usually how it works is YouTube compares your videos to all similar videos around a given subject. So you're basically competing with all the other YouTube videos around you. So let's say you upload that how to get more clients as a copywriter video, right? So first YouTube uploads it. It sees, okay, how does the initial audience react to it? Is it positive or negative? If the initial audience reacts negative, it tends to then not push it to a more broader audience, right? But how it goes, you have to envision it as some kind of like staircase. So first you get pushed to the initial audience, and depending on the type of content you make, like either it's very broad, which means your initial audience usually doesn't like it. For example, Mr. Beast has this problem where he uploaded a bunch of videos that are a bit longer form, right? And those tend to only do well after a longer period of time because that initial audience tend to dislike those videos a little bit more. Okay. So that initial audience was a worse reaction, so the views were lower, but over time YouTube pushes it to a broader audience, and also the watch time also accumulates over because it was a longer video. And over time, it pushes it to different audiences and a broader audience, and those more broad topics will do better there. So all of a sudden you'll have a graph instead of that shoots up immediately, it'll be very low, and then after a while, once it reaches that broader audience, it goes up, right?
Interesting.
So the main point is what I'm trying to get at is that there's so many variables when deciding when deciding what to improve on a YouTube video, is that in my eyes it's just better to focus on your end goal.
So would you say when you're looking to improve a video, so let's say your videos are between 3,500 and 4,000 views, would you say the time should be spent on the content of the video, especially for Faceless, which could be writing and animations, or let's say the script writing, or thumbnails, titles? Like, how do you weigh up where to focus? What
it tends to be is what you try to do for every video is you try to set, just like with science, you try to set a hypothesis, right? So you upload a video, and then you look at the performance, right? So is it high? So first question you ask yourself, okay, is this video better performing or lower performing in terms of views than my other videos? If it was higher performing, what could have possibly caused this? Did I change something about my packaging? Did I change something about the video itself? Did I change something about the title? And you try to see, okay, what were the variables that were changed? And then let's say you found, like you changed one of the variables and that ensured an increase in performance. You would keep that variable for the next video and then tweak something else. And then you would see, okay, does it do better or worse? And that's basically what you do for every single video. It's like you tweak a variable, you see, does this increase or decrease the performance of the video? So, and for my end goal, right? Like, and if it increases, you keep that variable as is and change something else. And if it decreases, you remove it and try again until you've found the most optimal variable. So you're basically A/B testing every single video, but then each element of the video, you're A/B testing a different variable. Because if you change up the entire video, there's too many variables to take account for. But you really try to have a consistent format and then change one variable at a time and then set a hypothesis why this worked or why this didn't work.
Well, that's why you're the YouTube scientist, right? Because most guys are going to just change everything at
Yeah,
once,
yeah, yeah.
especially if they're early in their journey.
Yeah.
You know, I think like even for my own podcast, we've like a brand team, and then we're trying different thumbnails, and then trying to like keep it aligned, but then try new shit, and then try different titles. So it's kind of like 250 episodes in.
Yeah.
I'm like refining.
Yeah.
But would you think that's a struggle for people getting started, especially in the Faceless area, that they're just jumping in doing long form and then they're trying to get?
Oh, they're all over the place.
They're all over the place.
That's
It's like
probably the
startup,
most prime beginner mistake. But even people who are really good at YouTube make this one mistake, which is they have a video that was a fantastic outlier, and I see this like on every single channel, a fantastic outlier, and they then didn't milk that concept. It's such a waste. It's the big and some people will now probably think like, no, I don't do this. You're doing this. Like you've probably not milked that outlier format on your channel. Like you've not milked it enough.
And to be honest, I've been in that scenario, which is like, it's like you know, if you look at a mean curve, and I explained this to a friend recently, is that like everything in life is trying to pull you back to the mean, like being an average person, being like lazy, you know, broke, the simple fucking shitty things, videos you're doing. When you do something that's crazy, that's a little bit more intense, your body is trying to like almost not repeat that behavior because it was tough to do. It was really tough to do, which is why some of my best videos, they were me flying to Dubai and getting a studio set up and then flying to New York and creating a new studio, which obviously isn't scalable. But what I'm trying to do now and push myself more is like our next tour in the US is how do we replicate all the best videos we've done over the course of 10 videos that are all in person.
But for example, you could, let's say that was an outlier format on your channel, right? What I would have done is say, okay, how can we make this scalable? So you're saying, okay, we go somewhere and we build a studio, right? That's what you think. Well, what if you get a 3D artist and you get someone else's studio, like I redesigned and then someone else, like Joe Rogan's studio, for example, right? And you get a 3D artist, you model the room, and then you redesign redesign the entire podcast studio in 3D. Like you would have to test. You would have to test obviously if it works.
Of course.
But you can, by doing this, you can have a scalable format, and you can over and over and over again, and you know it's going to perform every single time because that's the type of business I run. I want predictable performance in every single one of my videos. So if I change everything in every single one of my videos, I'm not going to have predictable revenue. Like that's just not going to work. Like if you run a channel for fun, that's when you start doing random shit, right? Like
of course.
You do vlogs or whatever. But if you're trying to run a business, you find one format that works, and if it works, you stick to it. Like you don't change it up too much. And that's really the one mistake people make, right? They're really not looking at their past performers and recreating them, but then in a bigger and better way.
Yeah, past performance is an indicator of future success. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Unless the finance bro.
Yeah, unless you're a finance bro. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look again at next level, which is super interesting, right?
Yeah.
One thing that I've observed is the fact that you're building this in public.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're building it on Twitter, your feedback loop, like your really startup entrepreneur kind of mindset, and you're getting that feedback and you're making the product better.
Yeah.
How much do you think that's benefiting two things? One, the product, and two, customer acquisition.
So I think you can't build a successful startup quickly if you don't have some kind of audience. And most people don't give a singular, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear, but a singular fuck.
But you can say whatever you want.
Don't give a singular fuck about your company. Like, and this is like probably the number one mistake entrepreneurs make. They think like, oh, if I have a cool company, people will naturally connect with it. But they don't. They really don't give a fuck. What they do find interesting is who's behind this? You know, what are their hopes and dreams? Like, what is their journey? And what is their struggle? You know, like humans connect with humans usually, right?
Story.
And just by building next level semi in public, you can do two things. Is first of all, you build that kind of story, like everyone is taken with you on that journey, and then second of all, that feedback loop, and again, I love shipping really fast, is super quick. So, you know, I'm always talking to customers, and this is like probably the number one, like you don't need to watch all those like startup like speeches. Probably the number one advice all the founders have is these three things. It's like ship fast, have a short feedback loop, and talk to customers. Those are the three things you need to be doing. And a great way to do that is either having a YouTube channel, having a Twitter, or even a LinkedIn. And then just showing what you're building and having people roast it. Or when you see someone that has a problem on LinkedIn, let's say they're saying like, oh, I wish Canva had this, or I wish this software had this, or I wish this other service had this. You're like, okay, let me just really quickly, how can I, as quick as possible, make a new concept and send it to them and see what they think about it. There was this trend of this guy going in and redesigning like UX designs of famous apps. I'm not sure if you've seen that. He makes like satirical designs, like for example, was something like YouTube, but they had community notes, and it's like they do like a twist on it every single time. But the cool part is that you get the live reactions of customers, right? And people get aware around it, and they start brainstorming with you basically, like, oh, I have a problem here, like maybe you can fix it. Like, oh, I have a problem here, maybe you can fix it. And then your task basically after that is filtering out the shit ideas from the good ideas, right?
You know who you remind me a lot of. Do you know Ghislaine from Lemlist?
No, I don't know.
Ghislaine, I'm trying to get his surname. He's French. Basically, you should definitely check out Lemlist. They're doing 40 million a year in ARR. Damn, and awesome guy, fully bootstrapped, couldn't get funding, so he said, fuck it, I'll do it myself. Right. And he's sad. So he's founder. He has 200 employees. He did customer support for, I think, 4 years himself. And as the founder, he just sat in customer support and just answered everything and then built everything, fixed it, like brought the bugs in, put it on Trello or whatever, then got the bugs fixed, retested them, came back and spoke to the customers. And bear in mind, this guy is worth God knows how much now at this stage. I had a podcast with him last year and he was like, yep, I still look at my customer support tickets and just answer the problems and solve the problems. And I think like the entrepreneur space, and it's ironic because I feed into it with an entrepreneur podcast, is that people think they're better than the process. 100%. I was just writing about this yesterday, that people think they're too good for sales calls, customer support, redesigning, talking to, maybe engineers or whatever. But like the best guys are in the detail. Brian Chesky, he was speaking a lot of different podcasts. I think he had a book that came out recently, how he did the most unscalable stuff for Airbnb. All the time. Like he would just literally be sitting there on a design review for like 4 hours, even though he had a bunch of other management stuff to do, right. But just didn't bother doing it because he focused on the product and making it a really good operation, So what revenue is it doing right now a month?
So right now it's doing between 60 and 70K in revenue, but it's not actually, so we've had... so keep in mind, this is my first ever software startup as well. Like I don't know how to code. I've never written a single line of code. Like I know a bit of Java just because I used to make a little bit of Minecraft mods, but that's about it. Mainly it is what you have to be good at as an entrepreneur is just being able to connect the right people. Assembly. But then another really big thing is, and I was talking to my CFO, and he manages all the technical parts, and he's like, I always go to these startup accelerators, and you have all these like guys from San Francisco, blah blah blah, and they've been trying for 4 years, and they've never ever had like a startup going above 100K a month, And keep in mind, like these guys are like fully like full stack devs, like they know everything in and out. But the thing they don't understand, and this is the problem with nearly every single startup nowadays, same for YouTube channels, is that it's always attention first. We live in an attention economy. No matter what business you build, it's always attention first. So I would not even build the product. I would just get the attention first and then build the product with the attention you've garnered.
Bro.
And that's like the number one golden rule. Like, please, if you take one thing away from this podcast, if you start any business, it's attention first. That's the first thing you think about. It's not the product first, because no one gives a shit about your product. Like, everyone can build a product.
First-time founders focus on product, second-time founders focus on distribution.
Exactly. And like people still don't realize this. Like still don't. Like it's so funny because like you also have obviously over time what happens is that there's copycats that jump up. But in the end they tend to fail because what they do is they just focus on the product. Like there's no distribution there. And that's just for everything. Like even if you start a coffee, like let's say you start a cafe, you would not build the cafe until you, like what you could do is even hire some architect from from Fiverr and start making videos like Instagram Reels about building a cafe and making it a really sick concept and build it with the community in and around that area. So you would make like, you would sketch up a concept and you would ask them in the comments like, okay, what would you add to this cafe? Like how could we make this better? And then once you have all this hype behind it and you've heard the customers' thoughts, that's when you actually invest the money because you're sure it's going to be profitable. And that's the same thing because I told you earlier, like Next Step is very, like it's already profitable. Like we bootstrapped the whole thing. Like I just invested my own money. The cool part is like I have my YouTube business that provides the cash flow. But we bootstrapped the whole thing and then all of a sudden you're profitable. And then I was like, okay, I could do two things. Either I could take the profit or I could just say, let's just fucking build something awesome. And that's what we did. So we're now working on a Chrome extension. And basically I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, you have all this Chrome extension with very fancy features. Like people love building like ChatGPT wrappers or like fancy stuff, you know. But I just went, okay, what is an actual painkiller? That's also a really big thing. Man. And it's the same when building channels. It's like, what's an actual painkiller versus what's an actual fight? Like,
versus a vitamin.
Yeah, versus a vitamin pill. So I would literally go to YouTube's Twitter support, and I would go through all the problems people would be having, and writing down everything that was recurring problems. And then I just built and it's these simple like little features, like being, for example, able to place ads automatically, like mid-roll ads, and it just puts the mid-roll ads like really quickly automatically, or being able to skip certain review processes, or being able to quickly pull up all similar channels to a channel you're looking at. Like these kind of like simple things that actually save you time and brain power, in my opinion, are worth way more than any like fancy like tool that shows you like a score, like how good this video is going to do. Because in the end, it's impossible to predict those things. It's like, unless you have access to YouTube's internal systems, you're never going to be able to predict that accurately and give like actionable advice. You could better just make a course at that point. And another thing like I struggled with is like I had many channels, and a lot of people also, like for example, you probably have access to all your podcast clients as well, right? What we're building is like up until this point, if you wanted to view all channels in one dashboard, like all the analytics in that one dashboard, you'd have to have either like an MCN, which is like a contractual obligation, or you'd have to build your own CMS system, basically. And what we've done is just in the Chrome extension, we've started building like a CMS system where you can just merge all your analytics into one place. So you can see all your channels' revenue into one place, all your views into one place. But the cool part is it's like basically the takeaway from it is it's not so much the features, it's really doing small and simple stuff that saves time instead of like building the fancy features. It's the same thing when you're building a YouTube brand. Like things don't need to be super fancy editing as long as the concept is right. And that just goes for every part, I think, in life.
Man, I love just watching you untangle these ideas because it's just crazy, right? Because a lot of guys will be so focused on the crazy features or the craziest ideas for the videos, and they never launch them. I remember even having a client say to us before, we were managing things in spreadsheets, right? And it was working, right? And he was like, we got to go to Notion. This is not sophisticated enough. The guy had never launched a video in his entire life. He could barely get his head around waking up in the morning, just all over the place. All over the place. And in the end, eventually couldn't even do it. And if you have a working system or something that's basic, that fixes the problems, why the fuck do we need to think about something that's way more sophisticated, if not?
I'll tell you something funny, actually, really quickly in between. So a lot of people, like, when they ask me, like, oh yeah, you have like 100+ employees working on your channels. Like, how do you even manage all of them? They're like, you must have like crazy, like Zapier automation set in place. No, I just have one Discord server and a Trello board. That's it. That's the entire thing. Because the problem with all those, like, people love to set up, like, you have to, like, entire code, like, around Notion, and, like, you have Obsidian nowadays as well.
Okay.
Like, the organization code, maybe you're one of them, or?
For what?
You're a part of, like, the Notion, like...
No. Dude, we have Slack, and we have ClickUp for our board.
Okay, right.
And we've never changed anything.
No, okay, right.
We just have Slack, ClickUp, and that's it.
I know there's people that swear by it, but, for me, my experience is that anything that humans are involved in, any system is eventually just going to fail. So what I just went is like, okay, let's just do no automations and just go with human management. And it's so much more efficient. Because let's say an editor forgets to assign, finish the videos and forgets to move one Trello card into the next area. The entire system holds up. Or someone forgets to move a script to that it's ready for a voiceover. The entire system breaks. Or what's also true is that if you have an automated system, people don't feel the pressure as much than as if there's someone WhatsApping them like, yo, where's this video? We've been waiting for 2 days, right? If you get a notification, you're like, delete. Right, but if there's actually a guy on your tail, I just have a guy on a few of the channels, I just have a guy and the only thing he does is like, yo, when is this video going to be done? Seriously, I'm serious. That's like some of their jobs is like just going, like messaging the freelancers like, when is this going to be done?
And that's 90% of it, man. It
increases productivity by so much. Like that's probably like as a founder initially, that's what you're going to be doing all the time. 100%. When is this going to be done? When is this going to be done? Yeah. Like any updates? Like 100%. Trust me, just hire a dedicated guy to be your updates guy.
That's why you feel like you don't have control sometimes. That's why if you have like so actually interesting point. If you don't know what they're doing, then you feel like you've no control. Whereas if you know how to edit or you know how to build or you know how to design, you're like, that shouldn't take you 6 hours because I know I could do it in an hour.
Yeah.
And that's where it's a very interesting observation. You mentioned there about the 60, 70K a month. Dude, like, you can sell that business right now for like 10 million.
No, so here's the issue.
Are you an entrepreneur who wants to build your influence and authority online? You may have tried some of the hacks and tricks, but none of it has worked. And it makes sense. 90% of podcasts don't make it to episode 3. Of the 10% that are left, 90% of them don't make it to episode 20. That's where Voix comes in. Voix creates, manages, and grows your podcast for you on your behalf. If you've not been getting leads, not been growing consistently, you haven't found your tribe, and you don't know what to do, Voix is the answer. Don't just take our word for it. In the past couple of years, we've managed over 35 podcasts. We've also been able to generate over 55 million views with 500 episodes produced. And not only that, generating over $1 million for our clients in products, services, and sponsorships. So if you want to learn more about how you can build a great podcast and have it fully managed for you, schedule a call with me at Voix and we will help you achieve your podcast goals.
So here's the issue. So I made a founder mistake. Like again, I'm for me, this is my first time ever running a software company. So and I'll explain the thought process behind this, but these are all lifetime sales for the tool.
Oh yeah, because you don't have. I noticed that. Why is it not?
Well, and I'll explain the choice. So first of all, obviously wanted the bootstrap, and then second of all, there was a problem in the concept. And I'm very honest about these type of things. Like I think a lot of the gurus like try to pretend, or like people like try to pretend they always make like the perfect choices, but it's not. Like I've made a shit ton of mistakes, and like this is partly one of them. But it was also a problem with the concept itself. Is that the issue with finding niches is that once you found them, there's no need for them anymore. So it's very valuable to find them up front. Like the value is given very quickly, but then how many times after that are you realistically going to try and find more niches? Like you would do it once every month and it's super valuable then, but a lot of users don't see the value in paying like for example $50 or like $100 a month for, because again I don't want to give it access to everyone, because the problem is you shoot yourself in the foot, because the product, if everyone has access to those niches, it's not as effective anymore, right? So it's a very fine balance, and that was the problem. The problem with the concept is that niche, like finding a concept, is something you only do once every X amount of time, and not every single day. I think the best tools or the best software is the things you use without even noticing you use it, right? For example, Grab here in Bali. You don't even think about it. Like you're just grabbing, like ordering, going on a scooter bike.
Slack.
Yeah, Slack, same thing. Discord, same thing. Like it's something you just use every single time without even thinking about the fact that you're using this piece of software. And that's the reason why we sold Lifetime as well. It's because what we wanted to do is two things. Is if you have subscriptions, people think very short term for your business, right? If you have, if you let the customer own Lifetime at the start of a company, what you can do then is you have a community that's way more engaged with wanting to do what's best for the company long term, right? And that's the reason why we went with Lifetime, selling Lifetime plans, is because we would have a community that wants what's best for the company long term. And then also it would provide us with funding to do whatever else we wanted to add to the software.
Of course.
So
could you decouple it? Like, I'm thinking like maybe the niche finder can be a one-off payment, let's say 350,
Yeah.
and then you decouple that, and then have that as a second feature, and then the motor in the business is all the other stuff like the speed and the uploads and the ad placements.
Yeah, so the Chrome extension is a completely separate product.
Awesome.
So that's going to be that software you use every day without thinking. So for example, you know how when you try to look for like video ideas on YouTube, like you have like limited filtering when you search for something. We built like a more extensive filter as well. So you're able to like filter by specific dates, specific amount of views, specific subscriber counts, specific like these type of things where it's just like oh, this is so much time and headache, you know.
Yeah.
Like and then just package it in a very cheap subscription model. Like I think it's not going to be more than $10, something like that. Because the reason what I'm trying to really do with this Chrome extension is get the churn as low as possible. Because it does like you don't need to like do massive amounts of profit if your churn is like super low.
4%.
Yeah, 5%. If you have like under 5% churn, you could have a majorly big exit if you're already at like 50K, like 60K, even more than that. Like if you want to do an 8-figure exit, like the cool part about low churn and like these small subscriptions is that people don't notice that they're being charged on their accounts. Versus if you have these like $50 or $100 a month like specialized tools, like for example you have Frame.io.
Oh, bro, I spent
so expensive,
so much money on Frame.
It's for the functionality, bro. I could recreate Frame in a week.
100%. So what do you use for your review process?
Trello.
For the videos, and then they're in Google Drive.
And Google Drive. Yeah.
I don't know. Like we moved to Frame. Why the fuck did we even move to Frame? I don't even know why. Bro, I'm spending
I think
so
the problem with
much money.
Frame. Well, so Frame is great. So what you're doing when you're making podcasts, right? It's great for those type of things. Like when you upload like once in a while high quality videos and you invested effort into making that video, then you do all the review process. That's when I would do it as well, like the review processes. But when you do a lot of quantity, right, like 20, 30 videos a day, it just doesn't make sense to just run it through a review process. But on the other hand, I think like, and I don't hope Frame's founding team is watching this, but for the price that they're charging, it's a very simplistic software. It's just 100%. File hosting with like a video review process. Yeah, and it's even hard to use at some point.
Yeah, it is. And it's hard to share with people.
It's no, and also like just trying to place like select a time area is confusing as hell.
It's so confusing.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah,
let's get rid of it. Fuck that. Man, it's costing me hundreds a month.
Yeah, okay, you got seats as well, right?
Bro, it's only seats.
Yeah, this is the same with Trello. Like I'm heavily considering just like recreating Trello on my own servers.
You can. Yeah.
And then just charging someone a flat fee. It's like $15 a month.
They did that with Slack, you know that? So you know Shamat, the fucking VC dude. Yeah. His podcast is called The All In. So people, as like startups, SaaS companies with 100 employees are paying around 4K to 5K a month on Slack, and this random dude just created like a Gen AI version of Slack, and it was free. It was like $10. It's crazy. And for us right now, ClickUp started out super cheap. It was $170 for the year, and then I got an invoice last week, $900 for the month or something.
I have the same thing with Notion, by the way.
I was just like, what the fuck? It was like literally more than my rent.
This is like such an easy SaaS idea. Just taking all these fucking like SaaS companies that have all these seat. I fucking hate seat pricing.
I hate the
bro. Same with Figma. I'm trying to share my designs with users so they can review them and tell like, okay, this could be better, this could be better. All of a sudden I get a bill for €500-600 because I added all these users for seats. Like I'm like, oh, like it's like I just want to pay one subscription and that's it. I understand why the SaaS companies introduce the seats, but it's such a headache because every time I invite someone, I have to think about how much this is going to cost me.
Exactly.
And this fucking sucks.
We didn't add our designers to Frame as a result.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, fuck it, you can do the upload.
Yeah.
You know, there was too much much complexity.
It kills productivity. So I was actually thinking of like, I'll just make Trello and then just charge like $10 a month for it.
It's bad image though. You know, if you think about it, if you think about what you're building and brand image and reputation, like your reputation is more important than everything else, right? But if you're doing these things, which is like, we're secretly taking $20 from you here and here and here, it has an impact on the business downstream, right?
Just what I also wanted to do, and I heavily believe in this, is like everything you do is just like over deliver. Like, especially when your personal brand is connected to this, like over deliver like crazy. Like to be fair, I could charge, like we have like 40, 50 features in the works. Like it would be like 2 or 3 times bigger than vidIQ and TubeBuddy, like the competitors. And like we're not going to charge more than $10. And it also has like the CMS thing connected to it. Like most people could easily charge like $50 for like a CMS, like combines all the channels. But I'm like, okay, I just want to build something where it needs to be such, like people need to call you an idiot for not having it installed. That's basically where I want to bring it to. And I want to build things that are so good that like everyone kind of talks about them. And I think that's where really good products come from.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to change path to your own personal stuff, dude. So like, how do you manage yourself? Like, how is your life running? You're 21, 22, running all these channels in this business. Like, how do you manage yourself and your lifestyle?
You want me to be honest?
Go for it.
Complete chaos. I'm not gonna lie. Like my life's complete chaos. Like not in a bad way. Like it's like I like what I do, and my life, like there's not much. Like I eliminate quite a lot of like bad friction. Like I just eliminate a lot of bad friction from my life. Like anyone who's just not giving the right energy or things I just don't want to give energy, I just eliminate from my attention. But to be fair, there's always a lot of stuff going on. Either like in 1 week I'm in Dubai, the next I'm in Bali, then I'm in Singapore, Malaysia. So that's going on. And then I have my relationships with friends and family, and then relationship with business partners, and then also running a business where you also have a bunch of people who need your attention, and then you also have the personal brand. So there's so much input coming in every day, and it's, to be honest, it's especially when you're young and you've never faced this before, it's something I'm still learning to conquer. And I think even when you're older, it's something you're trying to understand on how to manage. Like, how do you balance, like when you're actively building a startup or a business, like it requires your attention basically 24/7. But how do you balance that with having some kind of social life and also not neglecting your spouse or your family, for example? Because I sometimes tend to do that, where I'm like, oh, I'm on my phone. Like we're out for dinner, I'm on my phone. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on my phone. And it's a bit of an addiction, to be honest. Like
it still happens to me a lot. I think the biggest thing that went for me was the social life.
Yeah, the social life, it's so difficult to manage.
And I think it's the easiest one to pull because it's almost like an excuse.
Yeah.
Like you call it monk mode and then go into this like hermit, like introspective view, because it's like noble to build the business and be building something positive. So I think for me, I focus on like the business, the podcast, my health as well, just because I've come from like a fitness background, and the relationship. But friendships, partying, socializing are completely out the window for me. Which is just like a sacrifice that I've made. Which is like, not for everyone. You can do whatever you want. But I know for me, because when I was your age, dude, I was partying and fucking in clubs and shit all the time. So I think I'm kind of done with that. Yeah. So now that I'm 28, I'm like, just focus on the business and relationships. Yeah.
I had this short period where I was partying like crazy, like a year ago. No, like 2 years ago now. And I think it was, well, I understand why I did it, because it was like the year after I basically got introduced to traveling after I quit high school, which is like, I think like 4 years ago now, like 3-4 years ago. And then you're first starting to learn how to make your way around the world and like make connections. And then all of a sudden, at the end of, I think 2022, going into 2023, I probably had my biggest month yet on YouTube. And And that type of, like, all of a sudden, that type of money changes you. It's like, we're talking like 250 grand in a month, like just net profit. And that just hits your bank account and you're like, all right, let's go.
Let's go to Ibiza.
Yeah. So I call up my best friend. I'm like, yo, what about? So he's taking a gap year. So he finishes high school later than me, and he's gonna take a gap year. I'm like, yo, what do you think about we go traveling for 6 months and it's on me. And I just yeah. And we go traveling. We go Cape Town. There's a club in Cape Town called the Café Caprice. And it's like where all the guys go. Like Casey Neistat's brother was there, and then what's he called? The guy who runs the charity for Mr. Beast, the charity channel Mr. Beast. I forgot his name.
And you're like 20, by the way, doing this.
Yeah.
So you can barely get into the clubs.
Yeah. We were buying out. We once had a bidding war with Iman Ghazi. Yeah, he goes to that club as well.
No way. Have you met him?
No, I've never met him, man. But I know for a fact it was during the World Cup, and everyone's trying to get a table. But the tables are cheap, like in Cape Town. It's not expensive. Well, I mean like relatively cheap it would have been like 800 or 1,000 euros per table or something like that. But yeah, that was a crazy period. Like I was going out, I was traveling all over the world, like Dubai parties, Bali parties, like everywhere. And then eventually, I think one night I was just like hanging with my friend in the pool. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. It's done. It's done. It's like I've had my crazy period. It was, I think it was right after I met my now girlfriend. I was like, I'm done with this. Like it's been enough. Like I'm always tired. Like, okay, yeah, the business is going great, but is this really what I always want to be doing?
You're kind of miserable doing it too, right?
Yeah, you're kind of miserable. After a while, you kind of lose yourself. And it comes with that type of social life, comes with hella drama, like crazy amount of it. Because like, you're attracting people that just like have bad, like not necessarily good intentions for it. Like, so yeah, after I just got rid of it, I was like, okay, I left Bali. I went home to the Netherlands for a month, and then I decided to move in. I moved to Singapore with my girlfriend, and after that, I just basically. So during that party period, I just completely lost control of my rhythm. Like I was very religious about like waking up early, working out before. After that, I just completely lost control. So I'm still like trying to gain it back because it's like weirdly hard to get back to it, especially now that I'm at my busiest point in my life.
You've got priorities that are filling the time.
Yeah. But like, I think honestly, someone should start some kind of like really honest community for like guys like our age. Like it's like, there's like no guidance, there's no actual guidance. Like everyone flashes the money, everyone talks about like the cool lifestyle, but it's all of a sudden a big responsibility because you have a lot of employees that rely on you. A lot of business partners that rely on you, and then because you have money, also other people rely on you.
Well, that's the thing, man. And like, I'm 6 years older than you.
Yeah.
If I give you any bit of advice, it's like, I don't even know, man. It was like, it's almost trying to like detach from the numbers a small bit, and I don't let that kind of influence your surroundings and your people a small bit, because like, that kind of happened to me, right? It was that like I was like broke, and then I made money, and then things change and relationships change. And I thought it was, this is actually an interesting observation, I thought it was helping people around me, but a lot of the people, you're changing so rapidly, right? Your brain is even forming like 20, 21, 22, that you're maturing and you're running a 140 person employee team, and you are coming up with the pressure with it, but the people that you are helping, they're not changing.
No, right, yeah.
So that's why they stay young in their mind. And bro, they can be 50 years old and still think like children. So I kind of felt that, okay, now that I'm taking care of people and I have responsibility, everyone else is changing with me. But it wasn't. Yeah. So then I ended up losing a ton of friends, a ton of family. And I was this big problem in my brain because I was like, why is nobody else changing with me? Yeah. Whereas the 4 years I had spent building a business, I'm not building 2 years building this business, but 4 years changing, I guess. Yeah. It was a very, very harsh reality, and it's very upsetting. Yeah. I think the trends, like I didn't lose, like necessarily lose a lot of friends, but I just
did strategically cut out, like, it's like mutuals more so. It's like
You phase out.
yeah, you phase them out, yeah. And but really, it's I think in like people's and like no one really talks about it, but like it's hard all of a sudden coming into like a lot of money when you're young, like because all of a sudden like you can do anything, and everyone is stuck in this routine, and all of a sudden you're an outsider. Like it's like this because especially in the Netherlands we have the culture is very strict on routines. Like it's the everyday. It's like the Truman Show basically. Every day is the same. Yeah, it's the same thing every single day. And if you don't go to football as a sport and you don't go to college, you have no areas to connect with people. Like barely any areas, except for your existing friends that bring in friends from college or something like that. And that's very difficult to deal with as a young person. So you want to, like, I would advise everyone to just move out to where
100%.
other young entrepreneurs are, because otherwise you're going to go fucking crazy.
Well, there's a theory that like humans actually don't want to be free. I think it's Nietzsche said this, is that like, you know, we all seek freedom, but the reality is we actually don't want to be free, because if you can outsource your power and influence to the government, to university, to a corporation, even to a business, then you're like, oh, I'm chained to this, I need to work on it, oh, fuck me, I need to work hard, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're someone like yourself and you have all the access to wealth to go and do whatever you want, it almost, it gives you so much options that it almost paralyzes you into paralysis, basically. And it's an interesting observation. Like, what advice would you have for someone in that position who basically just feels on their own, like they're young, they're building?
Go places where people are earning 100 times what you're doing. Like
Really?
that humbles you. It humbles you. Yeah, like because where you're from, you think you're a big shot.
Yeah.
But you're actually not. Like you think you're doing 10, 20K a month. Like I know 16-year-olds doing $500,000 a month. Like, bro, like that's the thing. Like a lot of, especially the young guys, like when they're doing 10, 20K a month, I see them doing money spreads on Instagram.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, like really, it's not that crazy. Like, trust me, like I've seen some wild numbers, and really, you should be trying to get into those spaces, because the opportunity and the perspective that opens up to you, especially as a young guy, that needs humbling, because a lot of us have big egos. I feel like you need that. You do yourself a favor and get into those circles, because you need other guys like you to bounce ideas off of and keep you to the ground, because it's very easy to lose your head when you're in such a position.
It's interesting. The way I describe it is the more money you make, the more humble you are.
Yeah,
because you're like, oh, 10K a month, and then you think you're amazing, but then you're like, oh, wait, I am actually so stupid, I don't know how to run this team or whatever. And then you're making like 50 and you're like, whoa, I still don't know how to do this, and you're making 100. And it's like different levels of game. You know what it reminds you of? It's like going to the gym when you have like newbie games. You think you're like amazing, and then after a year you're like, well, to get to where I want to go to, I need to put my head down and spend the next 2 years building a better body and building physique and building whatever. So it's interesting, because guys will get in, and that's what they end up getting rinsed.
Yeah, exactly.
In the end.
Yeah, that's the main aspect of it. But yeah, these are like, I feel like someone should start some kind of community around it. Like, I would be interested to see that.
There's a lot of communities like this, but I guess you're such an outlier in terms of you're so young in that position. Yeah. But I think sometimes like the communities can be misguided, right? They can be about like women or about like spending.
It's usually
cash.
It's usually red.
It's usually red pill.
Like there is, I think I saw like a clip with you and the anti-profit. Yeah, right. And he said something like I agree with him here. It's like there's like a really big gap in terms of like you have a lot of people thinking the extremes, and then no one's thinking rationally, like in the middle.
So
like it's so true. Like that's a real big thing. I agree with him on. And it's the same thing on YouTube. Like you've all like when running businesses, like you have so many camps, like saying, "Oh, this is the thing you should go after. Like this is the piece of advice that's gonna make you go viral." And then you have another camp saying, "Oh, this is what you need to listen to." Usually the answer lays somewhere in the middle.
It's a nuance.
Yeah, it's a nuance.
It's a nuance, man. You know, and Chris Williamson said that to Hamza on his podcast, and was like, you know, you speak with so much certainty that if there's any bit of variance in the answer, then that leads to problems. And Hamza's response was, if I don't speak in certainty, then no one will follow. Yeah. He believes, well, he thought that.
It's true. This is true. What he's saying, because this is the way, because people like being influenced by extreme thoughts, because
That's why
like you
Tate
have to
did so
think
well.
like intelligent. Okay, so this is going to sound perhaps a bit interesting, but it tends to be that less intelligent people are more on extreme sides of the spectrum, and the more intelligent, it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
Yeah.
Like the more intelligent you are, the more you understand there's way more nuance to a certain problem, right? And that's the thing. It's most people are unintelligent. So yeah, if you want to appeal to the masses, you speak with a lot of certainty. That's the thing, and that's also a rule when you technically start a channel. Is you have to be clear in your standpoints.
And then the way it's spun is you're going to be the authority, you're going to be the influence as a result.
Yeah.
The key person of influence as a result. Before we finish up, last question I want to ask you is, what did you think of like Tate's approach towards growth and even the affiliate program in the back, the connectivity?
I think that was really smart. But so here's the thing with those like clips, it only works if you're actually this. So I call this remarkabilities. So this is a thing that a lot of people don't understand. It's like you can't reproduce what they did because it's already done. So for example, you need to have, so any viral video has some sense of remarkability. We call it remarkability, and that's just a term we coin it to basically describe something that's unique or hasn't been done before, and thus is naturally interesting and can go viral because it's novel, right? And that's the cool approach with Tate, is he said things that you couldn't say. And that's novel, that's remarkable. But now everyone is saying them. So, and then here's another example. This is why, for example, coming back to anti-profit, he became remarkable. Why? Because he went straight through the middle, right? And that's remarkable. So any person who gains attention has something remarkable. I did the same thing with my Twitter brand. It's like when I came into the space originally, I was one of the first after like the OG gurus, basically like FitIQ and those guys. I came into the space with like, yo, this is all bullshit. Like I'm just like I was like very transparent with everything. And before it was like, yeah, you can make 100K a month with YouTube automation and this, it's super easy. Like, and I was like, no, it's not easy. Like, and people like that. People like that genuine, those genuine thoughts, right? And that was remarkable. And thus I grew quickly. And that's with everything. Like your podcast needs to have something remarkable. If you're interviewing the same guest, but you don't offer anything remarkable to the podcast interview itself, no one's going to watch. Why would they watch you if there's nothing remarkable about it? So in any social media you start, it also applies to businesses.
100%.
If you want to go viral, think about the factor that's remarkable. So take something that has already worked. So like the format would be podcast here, and make it remarkable. So I would always say, like, let's say I would ever start a podcast. Like, yeah, you can do it in a simple way, but if you really want to go viral, you do it on like, for example, a crazy location. Like you do it hanging from a helicopter.
A tree.
Or a tree, or like just something where if there's not remarkable, like what content are you gonna make? You can clip it, but let's say like you do a video like I did I think a video that would get more views is I did a podcast with Luke Balmar hanging upside down from a tree.
Yeah. Even last night I was in a sauna with my fiance and we were like, if we did a podcast from the sauna, it would just be different. It's just in the sauna. It's just like stupid. Yeah. And then I was like, that would just bring more people in because we're just in the sauna. We're like 20 minutes before we all. Or
straight up, you know what I haven't seen yet, and I think it would be such a funny concept. It's like some dude who dedicates his entire podcast to holding the podcast in the most random ass locations. That'd be so funny. Like I feel like also, for example, what's her name? Bobby something. She did a podcast with Drake. She also came up. She's. Yeah, Bobby Lighthop. Yeah. It's this girl who interviews like the rappers and the music artists, and she does it in a way where like all the normal podcasters usually kiss ass, right? They're like, yeah, you did so good and this and that, but she just confronts them about everything. So she's just like insulting them the entire podcast basically, and that was her remarkability with the podcast, and thus it went super viral because people would share it and like, whoa, what the fuck? Like all of a sudden she's doing this. Well, everyone usually does this, right? So and then all of a sudden it's interesting. It's
a unique mechanism.
It's a unique mechanism, and people don't realize that's the driver behind a lot of growth on social media. It's the uniqueness.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if you look at a Fresh and Fit,
Yeah.
Like they were first for that, and then the whatever podcast
Yeah.
kind of copy them to
Yeah.
some degree, or I don't really know what the
You
difference
can,
was.
you can. So that's the thing. That's what we also do on YouTube automation or your Faceless videos. Is we find a remarkability that's already there, and usually you're able to be the second, third, fourth copy. Like there can be X amount of copies before it becomes. But before you reach, I call it audience saturation, where the audience has seen it so many times, it is not remarkable anymore. And that's what happens when we say format dies down or you fell off. That's when audience saturation happens. It's when you've seen something so often, the remarkability is gone. And it's not interesting anymore. So that's a key element to understanding.
You've seen that in Tate with Tate too, right? Like you see the subcategories of guys that are like Tate, but there's a few of them that are smashing it, right? Because they've brought the next wave of audience. Yeah. But then there's the other humdrum amount of people that just basically just coexist.
Yeah. The funny thing with I won't speak on it too much, but actually my business, I run a similar Faceless channel to Hamza, but Faceless.
Sick.
Yeah, like I don't run it. Like I'm not actively working on it, but I'm partnered with a guy who runs it, and it's quite an interesting space to see, and also like how dedicated the community,
the audience are.
The audience
that's the
super
biggest
dedicated,
thing. Right?
But yeah, it's a very interesting space, especially the Andrew Tate type of area, because what you'll see is that like unknowingly he reached a market of many people who were feeling the same way. They were kind of the anti-culture. It's a big thing nowadays.
Disgruntlement.
Yeah, it's like in every space there's room for someone to come in if you want to do the same thing as Tate and be the anti-culture. I think that's a big card you can play in a lot of spaces.
It's an interesting. So Faceless, that sounds great because you can be like, okay, I'm going to look at politics, or I'm going to look at global warming, I'm going to look at fitness and do the counterculture. However, I wouldn't want my brand to be that in terms of like, I don't want to just go into, let's just say like carnivore, go in and be like, carnivore's the way forward, fuck all the vegans. Like, I just feel like that's just a bad way to live, to be very abrasive continuously.
No, but here's the thing about the carnivore. That extremism is already there.
Exactly.
So again, if you want to, it's something you combine with, like, you can be anti-culture, but also in a more nuanced way. Yeah. So like the anti-profit did, right? Like you come in and you say, okay, we strike a balance here, and this guy is wrong and this guy is wrong. I'm right. That's the anti-culture you create right there, So and you can do this for a lot of different spaces, and people historically are attracted to anti-culture. Think about the hippies, right? It's anti-culture. So I really like anti-culture. It's an interesting phenomenon that people are kind of attracted towards. Yeah.
All right, man. We gotta head. You gotta get to Uluwatu.
Oh shit!
You'll be there in an hour.
Okay,
I want to say a big thank you, bro. And many more to come. Got much more to chat about.
Awesome. Cheers, bro.
Appreciate it, bro.
It.